He lost his daughter years ago, then found two scared girls at a gas station. When he collapsed years later, the hospital staff couldn't believe what the two young doctors revealed about him. Harold Thompson's weathered hands gripped the steering wheel of his 98 Bic as he pulled into Pete's gas station. The digital clock on the dashboard blinked 7:42 p.m., same time as always. The October wind rattled fallen leaves across the empty parking lot, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the cracked pavement. "Evening, Mr. Thompson," called Jerry from behind the counter. The old attendant's familiar face appeared through the streaky window of the convenience store. Harold raised his hand in greeting, the gold band on his finger catching the light. 3 years since Martha's passing, but the ring stayed put. Harold stepped out of the car, his joints creaking in protest. The temperature had dropped, and his breath formed small clouds in the air. He inserted his credit card into the pump and watched the numbers tick up slowly. "Prices going up again," muttered a voice behind him. Harold turned to see Mike, another regular, filling up his pickup truck. "Everything's changing around here, and not for the better." Harold nodded absently, his attention caught by a young girl skipping past the store window. Her pigtails bounced with each step, just like Sarah's used to. The memory hit him like a physical blow, his daughter at 7, full of life and laughter, before the accident that took her away. "Did you see that new guy they hired?" Mike's voice cut through Harold's thoughts. Tony or Tommy, whatever his name is, been giving attitude to certain customers, if you know what I mean. Harold did know. He'd noticed the new attendant, probably in his mid-20s, watching some customers more closely than others, following them around the store with barely concealed suspicion. "Times are changing, Mike," Harold said quietly, replacing the pump nozzle. "Not sure it's for the worse, though." Mike snorted and walked away, leaving Harold alone with the soft hum of the pumps. Through the store window, he could see the new attendant, Tom, that was his name, leaning on the counter, phone in hand. A group of teenagers entered the store, and Tom's head snapped up, eyes narrowing as he tracked their movements. Harold was about to get back in his car when the first drops of rain began to fall. The sky had turned an angry gray, and thunder rumbled in the distance. As he reached for his door handle, movement near the air pump caught his eye. Two small figures huddled together in the growing darkness. Girls, he realized, no more than 6 or 8 years old. Their clothes were already soaked, and they pressed close together, the older one's arm wrapped protectively around the younger. They were black, Harold noticed, and obviously scared. A couple walked past them toward the store, deliberately averting their eyes. Inside, Tom the attendant glanced out the window, saw the girls, and turned away with a dismissive shake of his head. Harold's hand tightened on his door handle. The rational part of his brain said to leave, to go home to his empty house and his TV dinner and his evening routine. It wasn't his business. It wasn't his problem. Another crack of thunder made the younger girl jump. The older one pulled her closer, whispering something in her ear. They looked so small against the darkening sky, so vulnerable. Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. "Daddy, why don't people help when they see someone needs it?" Harold closed his eyes, feeling the rain begin to soak through his jacket. When he opened them again, his decision was made. He couldn't walk away. Not this time. Inside the store, Tom straightened up as Harold walked in, wiping his feet on the mat. "Mr. Thompson? Forget something? Those girls out there," Harold said, keeping his voice steady. "How long have they been standing there?" Tom's expression hardened. "Not my problem. They don't buy anything. They can't hang around here. I was about to call the cops." "They are children," Harold said, feeling anger rise in his chest. "In the rain. Look, Mr. Thompson, I don't want any trouble. But you know how it is. They could be up to something. Better safe than sorry." Through the window, Harold could see more customers arriving, hurrying past the girls without a glance. The younger one was crying now, though she tried to hide it in her sister's shirt. "How it is," Harold repeated slowly, "is that there are two scared kids out there, and everyone's pretending they don't exist." He turned away from Tom's defensive expression and walked back into the rain. His heart pounded as he approached the air pump. The older girl saw him coming and straightened up, pushing her sister slightly behind her. "It's okay," Harold said, stopping a few feet away. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to help." The older girl's eyes were wary, but she didn't back away. "We're fine, so just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Harold asked gently. The rain was falling harder now. The younger girl sniffled, and her sister squeezed her shoulder. Our mom, the older one said finally. We took the wrong bus, and we don't know where we are. Harold felt a familiar ache in his chest. I'm Harold, he said. What are your names? The older girl hesitated, studying his face. Finally, she said, I'm Destiny. This is my sister Hope. We're not supposed to talk to strangers, Hope whispered, but she peered at Harold with a mix of fear and curiosity. That's right. You're not, Harold agreed. But sometimes we need help, and there's nobody else around. Are you hungry? As if in answer, Hope's stomach growled audibly. A ghost of a smile crossed Destiny's face, but she quickly suppressed it. Listen, Harold said, the store's right there, where everyone can see us. Why don't we go in, get something to eat, and figure out how to contact your mom? You don't have to trust me, but I want to help. Destiny looked at her sister, then at the dark sky and the rain. Harold could see her weighing her options, thinking like someone far older than her years. Okay, she said finally. But we stay together, and we stay where people can see us. Deal? Harold said. As they walked toward the store, he saw Tom watching through the window, phone in hand. Other customers stared and whispered. Harold felt their eyes on him, felt their judgments and assumptions. But when Hope slipped her small, cold hand into his, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes, he thought, the most important decisions in life come down to a single moment, a single choice between walking away and stepping forward. The bell above the door chimed as they entered the store, and Harold Thompson's life changed forever. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Harold led the girls to a small table near the front window. Tom watched them from behind the counter, his phone now pressed to his ear. Destiny kept her sister close, their wet shoes squeaking against the linoleum floor. Stay here, Harold said, pointing to the table. I'll get some food. What would you like? Hope's eyes darted to the hot dog roller, but she remained silent. Destiny squeezed her hand. We're okay, sir. Hot dogs? Harold asked, pretending he hadn't seen Hope's look. And maybe some hot chocolate? It's cold out there. Before Destiny could protest, Tom's voice cut through the store. Mr. Thompson? A word. Harold walked to the counter, conscious of the girl's eyes on his back. Tom leaned forward, lowering his voice. Police are on their way. Just as a precaution, you understand. Did you call them? Harold's voice came out sharper than intended. Store policy. Unattended minors, potential runaways. Tom shrugged. Better safe than sorry. They're lost, Tom. They need help, not police. And you're just the person to help them. Huh? Tom's smile didn't reach his eyes. Kind old man. Helping two little girls? People might get the wrong idea. Harold felt heat rise in his neck. The only wrong idea here is that those girls don't deserve help because of what they look like. A woman in line behind Harold cleared her throat. Maybe we should call child services instead of enabling this situation. The situation, Harold turned to face her, is that everyone in this store would help if these were their own kids. But they are not, so suddenly it's suspicious to show basic human decency. The woman flushed and looked away. Harold turned back to Tom. 4 hot dogs, 2 hot chocolates, and whatever snacks they want. I'll pay for all of it. He walked back to the girls' table, where Destiny sat rigid, clearly having heard every word. Hope pressed against her sister's side, eyes wide. Are we in trouble? Hope whispered. No, sweetheart, Harold said, pulling up a chair. But I need you to tell me about your mom. How can we reach her? Destiny's shoulders slumped slightly. She's a nurse at Memorial Hospital. She works double shifts on Thursdays. We were supposed to take the bus home from after-school program, but we got on the wrong one. Do you know her phone number? Hope nodded eagerly. Mommy made us memorize it. Smart mom, Harold smiled. He pulled out his cell phone, but Destiny's hand shot out. Wait, she said. How do we know we can trust you? The question hit Harold like a punch to the gut. He thought of Sarah at their age, trusting and vulnerable. The world hadn't been kind to that trust. You don't, he said honestly. But I'm sitting right here in front of everyone. You can use my phone yourself to call your mom. And look, he pointed out the window where red and blue lights now flashed in the rain. The police are here. You'll be safe. 2 officers entered the store, bringing with them the smell of wet leather and rain. Tom immediately approached them, gesturing toward the table. Harold felt Destiny tense beside him. It's okay, he said softly. Just tell them the truth. The officers approached, a middle-aged white man and a younger black woman. The female officer crouched down beside the table, while her partner hung back. Hi there, she said gently. I'm Officer Williams. What are your names? Destiny and Hope Carter, Destiny said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Our mom is Lisa Carter. She's a nurse at Memorial Hospital. Officer Williams nodded, writing in her notepad. Can you tell me what happened? As Destiny explained about the wrong bus and getting lost, Harold watched Hope fidget with her wet sleeve. She reminded him so much of Sarah at that age. The way she bit her lip when nervous, how she leaned into her sister for comfort. We usually take the 42 bus, Destiny was saying, but today they had a different driver who said it was the 47, and we didn't know until we were in a different neighborhood. The 47 comes through here, Officer Williams confirmed. She looked at Harold. And you are? Harold Thompson. I'm a regular here. I saw them standing outside in the rain and couldn't just leave them there. The male officer stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, could we speak privately? No, Harold said firmly. Whatever you need to say it here. These girls have been treated with enough suspicion tonight. The officer frowned but didn't argue. We'll need to verify their mother's information and Destiny. Hope! The cry came from the doorway. A woman in blue scrubs burst into the store, her hair wild from the rain, eyes frantic. Both girls jumped up. Mommy! Lisa Carter rushed to the table, gathering both girls in her arms. Oh God! Oh God! I've been looking everywhere. The school called and said you never got home, and I couldn't leave work right away. And, she broke off, pressing kisses to their wet heads. Officer Williams said gently. We'll need to verify your identity. Lisa straightened, keeping her arms around her daughters. She fumbled in her purse for her ID and hospital badge. Of course, yes. I'm Lisa Carter, nurse at Memorial Hospital. I can show you. That won't be necessary, Officer Williams said, glancing at her partner. Just protocol to follow up. The girls are obviously happy to see you. As the officers spoke with Lisa, Harold stood quietly, preparing to slip away. But Hope's voice stopped him. Mommy, this is Harold. He helped us. He was going to buy us hot dogs. Lisa turned to him, really seeing him for the first time. Her eyes were red from crying, but they were sharp as they assessed him. You helped my girls. Anyone would have, Harold said, but Destiny shook her head. No, they wouldn't. Everyone else just looked away. Lisa's face softened. She reached out and gripped Harold's hand. Thank you. Thank you for not looking away. Harold felt something in his chest loosen. He thought of all the times he'd looked away himself, all the times he'd chosen the easier path. Not tonight. They are good girls, he said. Smart, too. They kept each other safe until help came. Yes, they did. Lisa hugged them closer. But they shouldn't have had to. Tom approached the group, his earlier suspicion replaced by awkward politeness. Mrs. Carter, if you'd like to get the girls some food. Yes, Lisa said firmly. Hope, Destiny, pick out whatever you want. Mr. Thompson, will you join us? I'd like to hear exactly what happened. As the girls led their mother to the hot dog counter, Harold caught Tom's eye. The younger man looked away first, his face flushed. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Through the store window, Harold could see the wet pavement reflecting the gas station lights, creating halos in the darkness. He thought about his empty house waiting across town, the silent rooms and frozen dinners. Harold? Hope called from the counter. Do you want mustard on yours? He smiled, feeling something warm and forgotten stir in his heart. Yes, he called back. Yes, I do. Lisa Carter sat across from Harold at the small gas station table, watching her daughters devour their hot dogs. Her hands wrapped around a coffee cup Tom had brought over, a peace offering of sorts. They've been in that after-school program since September, she explained, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I work doubles on Thursdays and Fridays. Single mom, you know how it is. Harold nodded, thinking of his own struggles after Sarah's mother left. I do know. Raised my daughter alone for a while. Where is she now? Hope asked through a mouthful of hot dog. Hope, Lisa scolded gently, but Harold waved it off. It's okay. He paused, his thumb brushing over his wedding ring. She passed away. Car accident. Long time ago. My wife Martha too. More recently. I'm sorry. Destiny said quietly, and Harold saw real understanding in her young eyes. Lisa reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you again for helping them. These days, people are so quick to assume the worst. Like that man, Hope pointed at Tom, who was pretending to restock shelves nearby. He wanted to call the police on us. He did call the police, Destiny corrected. But Officer Williams was nice. Lisa's jaw tightened. I've dealt with this their whole lives. People seeing my girls and assuming they had trouble. Even at the hospital, some patients. She trailed off, shaking her head. Harold watched Hope carefully wrap half a hot dog in a napkin. For later, she explained when she caught him looking. You don't need to save it, he said. Are you still hungry? We can get more. Hope glanced at her mother, who was digging through her purse. I've got some cash here somewhere. Please. Harold held up his hand. Let me. When was the last time you ate? Lisa. She laughed tiredly. I honestly can't remember. Been running on coffee since noon. More hot dogs, Harold called to Tom. And maybe some real food from the deli case? As Tom prepared their order, Harold noticed Lisa checking her phone. I should get them home. It's so late. And I have another shift tomorrow. How will you get there? I saw you run in. But I don't see your car. My friend dropped me off. She's been driving me around looking for them. I'll call her or get a cab. I can drive you, Harold offered, then quickly added, if you're comfortable with that. My car's right outside. Lisa studied him for a long moment. You know how this looks, right? A white man offering to drive a black woman and her daughters home at night. I know how some people might see it, Harold agreed. But I also know you're exhausted. It's late. And a cab will be expensive. Mommy, can we? Hope asked. Harold's nice. He's like a grandpa. Something flickered across Lisa's face. Hesitation, maybe, or recognition of her own prejudices. Finally, she nodded. Okay, thank you. They gathered their food and headed out to Harold's Bick. The night air was cool after the rain, and the parking lot gleamed under the fluorescent lights. As Harold opened the car doors, he caught Tom watching from the store window. The drive was quiet at first, with Lisa giving directions from the passenger seat while the girls dozed in the back. They drove through neighborhoods Harold rarely visited, past small houses with chain-link fences and basketball hoops in driveways. Turn left at the church, Lisa directed. Third house on the right. Harold pulled up to a small but well-maintained house with potted plants on the porch. Before he could turn off the engine, Hope spoke up from the back seat. Can Harold come visit us sometime? Lisa turned to look at her daughter. Honey, Mr. Thompson probably has his own life, his own plans. Not really, Harold said softly. Mostly just trips to the gas station. A moment of understanding passed between the adults. Lisa recognized the loneliness in his voice, just as he had seen the exhaustion in her eyes. Maybe, she said slowly, if you'd like, you could help sometimes? With rides to school when I have early shifts? Only if you want to, of course. I'd like that, Harold said, surprised by how much he meant it. Me too. Hope bounced in her seat. Harold can tell us stories about when he was little. That was a very long time ago, Harold chuckled. Will you tell us about your daughter? Destiny asked quietly. The question caught Harold off guard. For years, he'd avoided talking about Sarah, kept her memory locked away where it couldn't hurt him. But looking at these girls, their openness, their resilience, something shifted. Her name was Sarah, he said. She loved hot dogs too. Like me. Hope exclaimed. Just like you? Lisa touched his arm gently. Would you like to come in? I can make some real coffee, not that gas station stuff. Harold hesitated. It was late, and part of him wanted to retreat to his familiar solitude. But then Hope grabbed his hand, and Destiny smiled at him. A real smile, not the guarded one from earlier, and he found himself nodding. The inside of their house was warm and lived in. School books and toys shared space with medical textbooks and nursing journals. Pictures lined the walls, the girls at various ages, Lisa in her graduation gown, an older woman who had Lisa's smile. My mother, Lisa explained, following his gaze. She passed last year. She helped with the girls a lot. I'm sorry, Harold said, and meant it. While Lisa made coffee, the girls showed Harold their homework and drawings. Hope had a particular talent for art, her pictures full of bright colors and smiling faces. This is our family, she explained, pointing to a recent drawing. That's Mom, and me, and Destiny, and Grandma in heaven. She picked up a crayon. I'm going to add you too, Harold. You can be our new grandpa. Hope, Lisa called from the kitchen. Don't put Mr. Thompson on the spot like that. But Harold felt his eyes well up as he watched Hope carefully draw a new figure into her family portrait. How long had it been since anyone had wanted to include him in their life? They talked for another hour, sharing stories and leftover hot dogs. Harold told them about Sarah's childhood adventures, and Lisa shared tales from the hospital night shift. The girls gradually nodded off on the couch, Hope's head on Destiny's shoulder. I should go, Harold said finally, looking at his watch. You need rest before your shift. Lisa walked him to the door. Thank you again. Not just for helping them, but for seeing them. Really seeing them. They make it easy, Harold said. They are special girls. Yes, they are. Lisa hesitated. Were you serious about helping with rides sometimes? Absolutely. I'd be honored. Even if people stare? Even if they make assumptions? Harold thought about his empty house, his lonely routine, the years he'd spent hiding from connection. Then he thought about Hope's drawing, with its new addition to the family. Let them stare, he said. Some things are more important than what people think. Lisa hugged him then, quick but fierce. Good night, Harold. Drive safe. As he walked to his car, Harold heard the girls' sleepy voices through the open window. Mom, can Harold really be our grandpa? We'll see, baby. We'll see. Harold drove home with a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in years. His house was still empty when he arrived, but somehow it felt different. On his refrigerator, he put up the small drawing Hope had insisted he take, a family portrait with a new figure added, labeled Grandpa Harold in crooked letters. Tomorrow, he knew, would bring challenges. People would talk, make assumptions, judge choices they didn't understand. But for the first time in years, Harold Thompson looked forward to tomorrow. Sometimes, he thought as he got ready for bed, family finds you when you least expect it. Sometimes it starts with a rainy night, 2 lost girls, and the simple choice to stop looking away. Harold's Bic pulled up to the elementary school at exactly 3:15 p.m. He'd been making this trip 3 times a week for the past month, timing it perfectly with Lisa's hospital shifts. The autumn air had grown colder, and leaves crunched under his tires as he parked in the pickup lane. Hope spotted him first, her bright blue backpack bouncing as she ran toward the car. Destiny followed at a more reserved pace, but Harold caught the smile on her face. Harold, I got an A on my art project. Hope climbed into the back seat, already pulling papers from her backpack. Careful with the door, Destiny reminded her sister as she slid in beside her. Hi, Harold. Good afternoon, girls. Harold turned to look at Hope's artwork, a construction paper collage of their neighborhood. This is wonderful, Hope. You've got real talent. Mrs. Rodriguez said I should take art classes. Hope beamed. Can we put it on your fridge with the other ones? Harold nodded, thinking of his refrigerator door, now covered in artwork and school papers. Just months ago, it had been bare except for a single takeout menu. As they drove, Destiny worked on her math homework while Hope chatted about her day. Harold watched them in the rearview mirror, still amazed at how quickly they'd settled into this routine. Harold, Destiny spoke up suddenly. Who's the girl in the picture on your shelf? The one with the pink dress. The question made Harold's hands tighten on the steering wheel. He'd known they'd ask eventually. They'd been spending more time at his house after school, waiting for Lisa to finish her shifts. That's Sarah, he said quietly. My daughter. The one who died? Hope asked. Destiny elbowed her. What? Mom said we shouldn't ask about it. But I want to know. Harold pulled into his driveway, turning off the engine. It's okay to ask. Yes, that's Sarah. She was about your age in that picture. Hope? Inside, the girls dropped their backpacks by the door, a sight that had once bothered Harold's sense of order but now felt right somehow. Hope went straight to the refrigerator with her art project and a magnet. Destiny walked to the shelf with the photographs. She studied Sarah's picture carefully. She looks happy. She was, Harold said, joining her. Very happy. Full of life. What happened? Destiny's voice was gentle, careful. Harold sat heavily in his armchair. The girls gathered around him, Hope perching on the arm while Destiny sat cross-legged on the floor. It was a car accident, he said finally. Rainy night. Like the one when I met you two. She was 17. The other driver was drunk. Hope's small hand found his. Were you sad? Very sad. For a long time. Still sometimes. Like how Mom gets sad about Grandma. Hope asked. Yes, like that. Destiny stood and walked to her backpack, pulling out a folder. We're doing a family tree project in social studies, she said. Can we put you on it? Mom said it was okay to ask. Harold felt his throat tighten. On Destiny's paper, he could see Lisa's name, the girls' names, their grandmother's name. And there, in pencil, waiting to be inked in, Grandpa Harold's. Only if you want to, Destiny added quickly. We don't have to. I'd be honored, Harold managed to say. Hope clapped her hands. I told you he'd say yes. Now we have a grandpa again. Hope, Destiny started, but Harold shook his head. It's fine, he said. More than fine. They worked on homework after that. Destiny at the kitchen table with her social studies project, Hope on the floor with her spelling words. Harold moved around the kitchen, preparing snacks and helping when needed. A knock at the door made them all look up. Mrs. Peterson from next door stood on the porch, her expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Harold, is everything all right? I've noticed you've had visitors quite often lately. Harold felt Destiny tense behind him. Everything's fine, Margaret. These are my granddaughters, Hope and Destiny. They stay with me after school sometimes while their mother's at work. Mrs. Peterson's eyebrows rose. Granddaughters? I wasn't aware you had. Family comes in many forms, Harold said firmly. Would you like to come in for coffee? No. She backed away slightly. Just checking. Being neighborly, you know. After she left, Destiny looked at Harold. You called us your granddaughters. Well, that's what you are now, aren't you? Unless you'd rather I didn't. Hope threw her arms around him. We are your granddaughters. Later that evening, Lisa arrived to pick up the girls, still in her hospital scrubs. She looked exhausted but smiled when she saw Hope's new artwork on the fridge. They've taken over your house, she said apologetically. It needed taking over, Harold replied. Lisa, Destiny asked about Sarah today. Lisa's expression softened. I hope that was okay. They've been curious, but I told them not to pry. It was good to talk about her, and they asked if they could put me on their family tree. I hope you said yes, Lisa said, because I don't think we could get rid of you now if we tried. Hope talks about her grandpa Harold to anyone who'll listen. Harold felt warmth spread through his chest. The neighbors are starting to notice. To question, does that bother you? No, he realized. It doesn't. Not anymore. Lisa hugged him, something that had become natural between them. Good. Because you're stuck with us now. That night, after they'd left, Harold sat in his quiet house. But it wasn't the same quietness as before. Now there were traces of life everywhere. Hope's drawings, Destiny's neat stack of books on the coffee table, a half-finished puzzle they'd started together. He picked up Sarah's photo from the shelf. You'd like them, he said softly. They remind me of you sometimes. Hope's laugh. Destiny's serious little frown when she's thinking. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Girls want to know if you'll come to their school play next week. Hope's a tree. Destiny's narrator. Harold smiled as he typed back. Wouldn't miss it. Another text came through. Warning. Will involve sitting with other parents' grandparents. People will talk. Let them, he replied. He put the phone down and looked around his living room. A year ago, it had been a museum to his past, everything perfectly arranged and untouched. Now there were scattered toys, homework papers, and signs of life everywhere. The neighbors would talk. People would question. But Harold thought of Destiny's family tree, of Hope's drawings labeled Our Family, of Lisa's tired but genuine smiles. Some things were worth a little gossip. Besides, he thought as he picked up Hope's scattered crayons, she was right, every tree in that school play needed a grandfather to cheer it on. 3 years passed like pages turning in a book. Hope and Destiny grew taller, their backpacks heavier with middle school textbooks. Harold's refrigerator ran out of space for artwork, so he started a gallery wall in the hallway. Time moved forward, but some things stayed the same, like their Sunday dinners. Past the potatoes, Grandpa Harold, Destiny called from across the table. At 12, she'd hit a growth spurt that made her legs too long for her chair. Hope, now 10, still sat on her knees to reach the table properly. These aren't just any potatoes, Harold said, passing the dish. These are your grandmother Martha's special recipe. Lisa looked up from her plate. You've been cooking more of Martha's recipes lately. The girls should know their family history, Harold said. Even the parts that came before they did. Speaking of history, Destiny put down her fork. I got my report card today. And? Lisa and Harold asked simultaneously, making Hope giggle. Destiny pulled a folded paper from her pocket and handed it to her mother. Lisa's eyes widened as she read. All A's. Even in advanced biology. She passed the report card to Harold. Destiny, this is amazing. Harold studied the grades, pride swelling in his chest. Outstanding. Although I'm not surprised. You've been reading those medical books I got you nonstop. I want to be a doctor, Destiny announced. Like Dr. Chen at the hospital. Mom introduced me to her last week when I visited. A doctor. Harold smiled. That's a big dream. Too big. Destiny's voice held a note of uncertainty. No dream is too big, Lisa said firmly. But it takes hard work, dedication, and good grades, which you already have, Harold finished. We'll help you get there. Hope pushed her peas around her plate. What if I don't want to be a doctor? Then you'll be something else wonderful, Harold assured her. An artist? Maybe. I saw your new paintings in art class yesterday. Mrs. Martinez says I could get a scholarship to art camp this summer. Hope brightened. But some of the kids said. She trailed off. But Harold caught the shadow that crossed her face. Said what? Nothing, Hope mumbled. Hope. Lisa's voice was gentle but firm. What did they say? Just that I shouldn't bother. Because we can't afford it anyway. And because. She glanced at Harold, then away. Because I'm white and you're not? Harold asked quietly. Hope nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Tommy Miller said his dad said it's weird that you're our grandpa. That you're probably just feeling guilty about something. The room fell silent. Harold felt a familiar anger rise in his chest. Not at Tommy Miller or his father, but at a world that would make a 10-year-old question love. Look at me, Harold said. All three of them turned to him. Family isn't about what other people think. It's not about color or guilt or anything else. It's about love. And I love you girls and your mother more than anything in this world. We love you too, Destiny said. Those kids are just jealous because their grandpas aren't as cool as ours. Hope wiped her eyes. Really? Really? Lisa reached across the table and squeezed her hand. And as for art camp, we'll find a way. We always do. Later that evening, after the dishes were done and homework was spread across the living room floor, Harold's hands started to shake. It had been happening more often lately, small tremors he tried to hide. Grandpa. Destiny looked up from her biology textbook. Are you okay? Fine, Harold said quickly, shoving his hands into his pockets. Just tired. But Destiny's eyes narrowed in that way that reminded him so much of Lisa. Your hands are shaking again. Mom, look. Lisa appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. Harold? Let me see. It's nothing, he protested. But Lisa was already in nurse mode, taking his hand and checking his pulse. How long has this been happening? A few weeks. Maybe months. It comes and goes. Months? Lisa's professional calm cracked slightly. Harold, you need to see a doctor. I'm fine, he insisted. Just getting old. No arguments, Lisa said firmly. I'm making you an appointment tomorrow. Destiny, get my phone. As Destiny rushed to help her mother, Hope climbed into Harold's lap, something she was getting too big for but still did when she was worried. You have to take care of yourself, she said seriously. You promised to come to my art show next month. And my science fair, Destiny added. And my college graduation when I become a doctor. That's years away, Harold chuckled. Exactly, Lisa said, already dialing. Which is why you're going to let us take care of you. Just like you take care of us. Harold looked around his living room, once so empty, now full of life. Homework papers and art supplies scattered everywhere. Lisa's nursing textbooks stacked by the couch. Pictures of the girls covering every wall. Okay, he said finally. Make the appointment. Later that night, after Lisa had taken the girls home, Harold sat in his chair looking at old photographs. Sarah at 12, the same age as Destiny now. Martha in the kitchen, teaching Sarah to make those same potatoes they'd had for dinner. His hands shook as he held the photos, but he wasn't scared. 3 years ago, he would have hidden his symptoms, retreated into solitude. But now, his phone buzzed with a text from Hope. Don't forget your doctor appointment tomorrow. Love you, Grandpa Harold. Red Heart # another from Destiny. I'll quiz you on medical terms so you can understand what the doctor says. Smiling face, and finally, from Lisa, we've got you. Rest well. Harold set the photos back on the shelf and picked up one of the girls at last year's Christmas. Both of them wearing matching sweaters he'd bought, their smiles bright enough to light up the room. His hands might shake, but his heart was steady. The neighbors still whispered sometimes when the girls ran up his driveway after school. Tommy Miller's father still made comments at PTA meetings. But none of that mattered. Family, Harold had learned it, wasn't about blood or color or what other people thought. It was about Sunday dinners and homework help and holding hands when they shook. It was about art shows and science fairs and dreams of becoming doctors. It was about love, pure and simple. Harold sent a group text back, "Love you all. See you tomorrow." Then he went to bed, lulled to sleep by the steady tick of the kitchen clock and the knowledge that he wasn't alone anymore. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring, but he'd face it with his family by his side. That night, he dreamed of Sarah and Martha, smiling as they watched him help Hope with her art project. In the dream, Sarah hugged him and whispered, "You did good, Dad. You found your way back to love." The graduation caps flew into the air, black squares against the blue June sky. Harold sat in the bleachers between Lisa and Hope, watching Destiny walk across the stage to receive a high school diploma. With honors, Lisa whispered, squeezing Harold's hand. Her eyes glistened with tears. First in her class, Harold added proudly, ignoring the tremor in his voice. His hands shook more these days, no matter how hard he tried to steady them. Hope, now 14, leaned forward in her seat. "She did it. And look, she's wearing the necklace you gave her, Grandpa." The silver caduceus pendant caught the sunlight as Destiny turned to wave at her family. Harold had given it to her when she received her early acceptance to pre-med. "A doctor's symbol," he'd told her, "because I believe in you." After the ceremony, they found her in the crowd. Destiny's dark skin gleamed with sweat under her graduation gown, her smile wide enough to split the sky. "Congratulations, Dr. Carter-to-be." Harold hugged her carefully, his balance not what it used to be. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandpa," Destiny whispered against his shoulder. "Any of it. You did it all yourself," Harold started, but a wave of dizziness hit him. He swayed slightly. "Grandpa." Destiny's smile turned to concern. "Mom, something's wrong." Lisa was there instantly, her nurse's instincts taking over. "Harold? Sit down. Right here." "I'm fine," he protested as they lowered him onto a nearby bench. "Just the heat." "It's not just the heat," Hope said. "You've been forgetting things too. Like yesterday, when you couldn't remember where you put your keys. And last week when you got lost driving to our house," Destiny added. "The same route you've taken for 5 years." Harold looked at their worried faces. When had the girls gotten so grown up? When had they started taking care of him instead of the other way around? "I have an appointment next week," he admitted. "More tests. Why didn't you tell us?" Lisa's voice was hurt. "It's Destiny's graduation. I didn't want to worry you." "That's not how family works," Hope said firmly. "We worry together." Later that evening, they gathered at Harold's house for the celebration dinner. The dining room was decorated with balloons and a congratulations graduate banner. Hope's latest artwork, a portrait of Destiny in her cap and gown, held the place of honor on the wall. Harold watched from his chair as Lisa and the girls moved around his kitchen, preparing food and talking about college plans. His vision blurred slightly, and he blinked to clear it. The admissions counselor said, "My AP biology scores practically guarantee advanced placement," Destiny was saying. "And with the scholarship, my baby's going to be a doctor," Lisa beamed. "Speaking of which, Harold, don't forget your medication." He reached for the pill organizer they'd set up for him, but his hands shook too badly. Hope quietly came over and opened it for him. "Thanks, sweetheart," he murmured. "Promise you'll tell us if you feel worse." Hope's dark eyes were serious. "You can't hide things from us anymore." "I promise." But later that night, after they'd gone home, Harold stood in his bathroom staring at his reflection. The face in the mirror looked older than he remembered, more lined. His hands gripped the sink as another wave of dizziness passed through him. His phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Destiny. "Grandpa, don't forget to take your evening pills. Love you." He smiled, reaching for the phone, but his vision doubled. The room spun. His hand missed the counter, and suddenly the floor was rushing up to meet him. Harold's last conscious thought was of the girls' faces, of promises he needed to keep. He woke to the sound of his own breathing and the steady beep of machines. Hospital. The antiseptic smell was unmistakable. He's awake. Hope's voice. Mom. Destiny. He's awake. Harold tried to open his eyes, but only managed to flutter. A warm hand gripped his. Take it easy, Grandpa. Destiny's voice was steady, professional. You had a fall. You've been unconscious for almost 12 hours. The girls found you, Lisa explained. We've been trying to call. When you didn't answer, we came to check. You promised, Hope's voice cracked. You promised you'd tell us if you felt worse. Harold finally managed to open his eyes. They were all there, Lisa in her nurse's scrubs, having come straight from her shift. Destiny still in her graduation clothes, Hope with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. Didn't want to spoil the day. You know what would spoil it? Destiny's voice was fierce. Losing you. We're family. We face things together. Remember, Dr. Martinez is running more tests, Lisa said. And before you argue, yes, we're staying right here. Harold looked at his family, because that's what they were, no matter what anyone said. 5 years ago, he'd been a lonely old man whose only routine was trips to the gas station. Now he had this, 2 brilliant granddaughters and a daughter in heart who loved him enough to be angry when he tried to protect them. Okay, he said finally. No more secrets. Hope curled up in the chair beside his bed, just like she used to do when she was little. Destiny stood by the monitors, already learning to read them. Lisa checked his fall with professional efficiency. You have to get better, Hope said suddenly. You promised to help me move into my dorm room when I start art school. And to see Destiny graduate med school. And to walk Mom down the aisle when she finally admits she likes Dr. Thompson from pediatrics, Destiny added with a sly smile. Destiny. Lisa blushed. Harold chuckled, then winced at the pain in his head. I promised to try. But you have to promise something too. Anything, the girls said in unison. Promise you won't put your lives on hold for me. Destiny, you focus on pre-med. Hope, you keep creating your art. Lisa, you keep being the amazing nurse and mother you are. We promise, Lisa said. But you have to let us help you. No more hiding symptoms, no more pretending you're fine when you're not. Deal. A doctor entered, young, with kind eyes behind his glasses. Mr. Thompson? I'm Dr. Martinez. We need to run some tests. My granddaughters are studying medicine, Harold said proudly. Well, Destiny is. Hope's going to be an artist. Dr. Martinez smiled. You have a lovely family. They haven't left your side since you were brought in. They're good girls, Harold said. The best thing that ever happened to me. As the doctor explained the tests they needed to run, Harold held tight to Hope's hand. His own hand still shook, but hers was steady, strong. When had his little girls gotten so strong? We'll be right here, Destiny promised as they prepared to take him for tests. Every step of the way, Harold looked at his family. This beautiful, unexpected family that had found him on a rainy night at a gas station. Whatever the test showed, whatever came next, he wasn't alone anymore. That was worth all the worried looks, all the trembling hands, all the dizzy spells in the world. I know, he said. I know you will. The hospital corridor buzzed with activity as Destiny paced outside room 412. Her white medical student coat swished with each turn, the caduceus necklace from Harold catching the fluorescent light. His blood pressure's still too high, she muttered, checking her phone for the 100th time. Hope, did Mom say when she'd be here? Hope looked up from a sketchbook, where she'd been compulsively drawing Harold's face over and over. Her shift ends in 20 minutes. She's trying to get someone to cover. Another doctor walked past, glancing at them curiously. Destiny had gotten used to those looks over the past week. People wondering why 2 young black women were keeping constant vigil outside an elderly white man's room. Miss Carter. A nurse approached with a clipboard. We need a family member to sign these forms. I'm his granddaughter, Destiny said automatically. The nurse hesitated. I mean, legally. I'm his granddaughter, Destiny repeated firmly. And I'm a medical student here. I know his case. Let me check with my supervisor. Hope stood up, her voice sharp. Our mother has power of attorney. She'll be here soon. But we're not leaving. The nurse walked away, and Destiny squeezed her sister's hand. When did you get so fierce? Learn it from you. Hope went back to her drawing. Remember when those kids in middle school said Grandpa Harold couldn't be our real grandfather? And you told them family isn't about looking alike, it's about love. Destiny smiled at the memory. You were right. A commotion down the hall made them both look up. Lisa rushed toward them, still in her scrubs from the ER. Any change? She asked, breathless. Blood pressure's still elevated. They are monitoring for signs of another stroke. Destiny's medical training kicked in. CT scan showed. Girls. A weak voice called from the room. Is that you? They hurried inside. Harold lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller somehow against the white sheets. Monitors beeped steadily around him. We're here. Grandpa. Hope took his hand. Mom just got here too. Harold's eyes were cloudy, unfocused. Sarah? Is that you? Destiny felt her heart clench. No, Grandpa. It's Destiny and Hope. Your granddaughters. Of course. Harold blinked slowly. My girls. Where am I? You're in the hospital, Lisa explained gently. You had another episode. Hospital. Harold's face showed confusion. But I have to take the girls to school. Destiny has a science test. Grandpa. Destiny leaned closer. I'm in medical school now, remember? Hope's starting art school in the fall. Medical school. For a moment, clarity returned to Harold's eyes. That's right. My brilliant girl. Going to be a doctor. A young resident appeared in the doorway. Miss Carter? A word. Destiny followed him into the hall, her heart pounding. She recognized the look on his face. She'd seen it during her rotations. Bad news coming. The latest scan results aren't good, he said quietly. The medication isn't controlling the blood pressure as well as we'd hoped. And there are signs of significant cognitive decline. What are our options? Surgery is risky at his age. And with his current confusion. I know the statistics, Destiny cut in. I've studied them. But this isn't just another case study. This is my grandfather. The resident's expression softened. I understand. But as a medical student, you also understand what we're facing. Back in the room, Hope was showing Harold her latest drawings. He smiled at them vaguely, then frowned. Martha would like these, he said. Where is Martha? Grandpa, Hope's voice trembled. Grandma Martha passed away, remember? Years ago. No, she was just here. She made potatoes for Sunday dinner. Lisa took Harold's hand. It's okay. Just rest now. Destiny watched her grandfather's face, seeing the confusion cloud his eyes again. She thought of all the medical textbooks she'd studied, all the cases she'd reviewed. None of them had prepared her for this. A code blue alarm sounded somewhere down the hall. Harold startled at the noise. Sarah, he called out. Sarah, is that you? I'm here, Grandpa, Destiny said, fighting back tears. Hope's here too. We're not leaving you. Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Doctors checked monitors and adjusted medications. Through it all, the girls stayed, taking turns sitting with Harold while Lisa coordinated with the medical team. Around midnight, Harold grew agitated. I have to go, he tried to sit up. The girls need me. They're waiting at the gas station. Grandpa, we're right here. Hope held his hand tighter. You found us at the gas station 5 years ago. Remember? You helped us then. Now let us help you. The gas station. Harold's eyes cleared slightly. 2 little girls in the rain. Everyone just walked past. But you didn't, Destiny said. You stopped. You helped us. You became our grandfather. My girls, Harold smiled. My beautiful girls. His monitors suddenly began beeping faster. Destiny's medical training kicked in as she read the numbers. Get Dr. Martinez, she told Hope. Now. The next few minutes passed in a blur. Medical staff rushed in. Someone tried to usher the family out. But Destiny stood her ground. I'm staying, she said. I'm a medical student, and here's my grandfather. Dr. Martinez arrived, quickly assessing the situation. Blood pressure's critical. We need to. But Harold's hand shot out, grabbing Destiny's coat. Stay, he whispered. My girl. I'm here, Grandpa. Destiny held his hand as the medical team worked around them. We're all here. Proud of you. Harold's voice was barely audible. All of you. My family. The monitors shrieked. Dr. Martinez called out orders. Hope screamed from the doorway. Lisa held her back, her nurse's training warring with her mother's instincts. Through it all, Destiny stood by Harold's side, one hand holding his, the other clutching her caduceus necklace. She watched the monitors, understanding with terrible clarity what they meant. "It's okay, Grandpa," she whispered. "We love you. It's okay." Hours later, Destiny sat in an empty waiting room, still wearing her white coat. Hope slept fitfully across several chairs, her sketchbook fallen open to a drawing of Harold smiling. Lisa had gone to handle paperwork. A nurse, the same one who'd questioned their relationship earlier, approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't understand before, but I saw you with him, saw how much he loved you both." Destiny nodded, too tired for anger or explanations. "Your grandfather," the nurse continued. "He raised good doctors. And good people." "Yes," Destiny said, touching her necklace. "Yes, he did." The morning shift changed at Memorial Hospital, and Destiny walked the familiar path to the ICU, her white coat pressed and name tag polished. 3 months had passed since that night, but some days it felt like yesterday. "Good morning, Dr. Parker," she greeted her supervising physician. As a third-year medical student, she'd earned the right to do rounds, though always under supervision. "Carter," Dr. Parker nodded. "Ready for rounds?" They moved from room to room, checking patients, updating charts. Destiny's mind stayed sharp, focused. Harold had taught her that, the importance of being present for people who needed help. In room 412, she still couldn't pass it without her heart clenching. They had a new patient. An elderly man with similar symptoms to Harold's. Blood pressures elevated, Dr. Parker noted. Previous history of hypertension and minor strokes. Destiny finished, reading the chart. "Like my grandfather." Dr. Parker's expression softened slightly. "Yes, I remember your grandfather's case. But this time we caught it earlier. Thanks in part to your research." After Harold's death, Destiny had thrown herself into studying stroke prevention and treatment. Her preliminary research paper had already caught attention from the department heads. "Carter," Dr. Parker said as they left the room, "your personal experience makes you a better doctor. Don't forget that." Down in the ER, Lisa worked her shift, moving between patients with practiced efficiency. She'd been promoted to head nurse last month, but she still took regular shifts, still worked directly with patients. "Mom," Destiny caught her between cases. "Don't forget, Hope's art show tonight. Already got my dress ready in the locker room." Lisa squeezed her daughter's hand. "He would have loved this." "Yeah," Destiny smiled sadly. "He would." The art gallery buzzed with people that evening. Hope's work filled one wall, a series titled Family Bonds. The centerpiece was a large portrait of Harold, his kind eyes and gentle smile captured perfectly in oils. "It's beautiful, honey." Lisa hugged Hope, careful not to wrinkle her daughter's fancy dress. "The gallery owner wants to talk about a permanent display," Hope said. "She says my work speaks to modern family dynamics and breaking traditional barriers." Big words for pictures of Grandpa Harold. A voice sneered behind them. They turned to see Tommy Miller, their old neighbor's son, standing there with his father. Some things, it seemed, hadn't changed. Actually, Hope's voice was steady. "They are pictures of love. Something you might not recognize." Mr. Miller's face reddened. "Now listen here." "No, you listen." Destiny stepped forward. "Our grandfather taught us that family isn't about what people like you think. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves." "He wasn't your real grandfather," Tommy muttered. "Really?" Hope pointed to her paintings. "Tell me what part of his love wasn't real." "The part where he drove us to school every day? Where he came to every art show and science fair? Where he helped pay for Destiny's med school applications? Or maybe," Destiny added, "the part where he spent his last conscious moments telling us how proud he was of his family." Lisa touched both girls' shoulders. "Come on. This night is about celebrating, not arguing." As the Millers walked away, other gallery patrons approached. Many were moved to tears by Hope's paintings, especially the one showing Harold teaching her to draw. "You've captured something special here," the gallery owner said. "The way he's looking at you both. That's pure love." Later that night, they drove to Pete's gas station. It had become their tradition, stopping there on important days, remembering where their family began. The station had changed hands. Tom had left years ago, but the air pump where two scared girls once huddled in the rain remained the same. "I did a rotation in pediatrics today," Destiny said, staring at that spot. "There was this little girl, scared of getting her shots. I told her about Grandpa Harold, how sometimes the scariest moments can lead to the most beautiful things. Did it help? Hope asked. She let me give her the shot. Then she drew me a picture. Lisa laughed softly. Full circle. They stood there in comfortable silence, remembering. A young mother hurried past them into the store, two small children trailing behind her. "Excuse me," Destiny called out. "Do you need help?" The woman turned, startled. "Oh, I'm just trying to get home. Car broke down. Mom's a nurse, I'm a medical student, and my sister's got jumper cables in her car." Destiny smiled. "Let us help." 20 minutes later, the woman's car was running. Her children were warm, and she had Lisa's phone number just in case. "Thank you," she said, tears in her eyes. "Most people would have just walked past." "Not us," Hope said. "Never us." Back home, they gathered in Harold's old house, now their family home. Lisa had moved in after his death, none of them wanting to let go of the space he'd filled with so much love. Hope's artwork still covered the walls, joined now by Destiny's medical school acceptance letters and Lisa's nursing awards. On the mantel, Harold's photos stood proudly. Him with Sarah, with Martha, and most prominently, with his chosen family. To Grandpa Harold, Destiny raised her coffee mug, who taught us that family is about choices. To the man who stopped on a rainy night, Hope added. To the father I never expected, Lisa finished. They sat together in the warm living room, surrounded by memories and love. Outside, rain began to fall, pattering against the windows just like that night 5 years ago. "You know," Hope said suddenly, "I used to wonder why he stopped. Why him, when everyone else walked past." "I think," Destiny replied, touching her caduceus necklace, "he was just tired of walking past. Tired of being alone. Sometimes the biggest acts of love come from the simplest choices." Lisa nodded. "He chose us, and we chose him. That's what made it real." Through the window, they could see their reflections. 3 strong women, different in appearance but bound by love and memory. Behind them, Harold's picture seemed to smile, watching over his family just as he always had. "Is still with us," Hope said softly. "In everything we do. In every patient I treat," Destiny agreed. "In every kindness we show," Lisa added. They sat together as the rain fell, sharing memories and coffee and love. Tomorrow, Destiny would return to her rounds. Hope would work on her next painting, and Lisa would care for her patients. They would carry forward the lessons Harold taught them about family, about love, about choosing to stop instead of walking past. And somewhere, they knew, Harold was proud of his girls. All of them. 10 years passed since that rainy night at Pete's gas station. The station itself had changed hands 3 times. But tonight it glowed like a beacon in the darkness as Dr. Destiny Carter pulled up to pump 3. Her white coat was folded neatly in the passenger seat, her hospital ID badge catching the fluorescent light. At 32, she completed her residency and now worked as an attending physician at Memorial Hospital, specializing in stroke prevention and treatment. The bell chimed as she entered the store. A teenage clerk looked up from his phone. "Evening," he said. "Can I help you find something?" Destiny smiled. "Just getting gas. But would you mind if I looked around for a minute? This place is special to me." The clerk shrugged, going back to his phone. Destiny walked the familiar aisles, her fingers trailing along the shelves. She stopped at the small table by the window where she'd first sat with Harold and Hope, eating hot dogs and finding trust. Her phone buzzed, a text from Hope, "At the house with Mom. Bringing the photos for the dedication ceremony tomorrow. You coming soon?" "Just making a stop first," Destiny replied. The old gas station. Needed to visit where it all began. 3 dots appeared as Hope typed. "Want me to come?" "No, I'm okay. See you at home." Home was still Harold's house, though they'd renovated it over the years. Lisa lived there full-time now, and Hope had converted the garage into an art studio. Destiny kept her old room exactly as it was, staying over whenever she had late hospital shifts. Outside, the air pump where they'd once huddled stood silent. Destiny touched it gently, remembering the fear, the rain, the kind eyes of an old man who chose to stop. Back in her car, she drove the familiar route home. Hope's car sat in the driveway, next to Lisa's nurse's station wagon. Light spilled from the windows, and the smell of Martha's potato recipe wafted from the kitchen. "There you are," Lisa called as Destiny entered. At 55, Lisa's hair showed streaks of gray, but her nurse's efficiency hadn't dimmed. "Help me with these boxes." The living room was filled with photographs and documents, preparations for tomorrow's ceremony. Hope sat cross-legged on the floor, sorting through them. "Look what I found," she held up a faded drawing. "My first family portrait with Grandpa Harold in it." Destiny took the paper carefully. Her sister's childish scrawl had captured their unlikely family: Lisa, Hope, Destiny, and Harold, all holding hands beneath a bright sun. "Hard to believe it's been 15 years, Lisa said softly. 10 since we lost him, Hope added. "But tomorrow. The thought filled Destiny's chest with pride and grief in equal measure. Memorial Hospital was dedicating its new stroke prevention and treatment wing, the Harold Thompson Wing. "Did you finish your speech?" Lisa asked, handing Destiny a cup of coffee. "Mostly." Destiny pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket. "Want to hear it?" Hope settled on the couch. "Always." Destiny cleared her throat. 15 years ago, 2 scared girls stood in the rain at a gas station. Everyone who saw them chose to look away, except one man. Harold Thompson didn't just stop to help. He chose to become family. He chose love over prejudice, connection over fear, hope over hesitation. Today, as we dedicate this wing in his name, we honor not just his memory, but his legacy. Every patient who walks through these doors will benefit from the research his story inspired. Every family facing the devastating effects of stroke will find hope in the treatments we've developed. But more than that, they'll find something Harold taught us all: that family isn't about blood or color or what other people think. It's about choices. It's about love. It's about stopping when others walk past. I stand before you today not just as Dr. Destiny Carter, but as Harold Thompson's granddaughter, the medical student he inspired, the child he chose. And I promise that every patient in this wing will receive the same compassion, the same dedication, the same choice to stop and help that Harold showed 2 little girls on a rainy night. Destiny's voice cracked on the last words. Hope moved to hug her sister. "It's perfect." Lisa wiped her eyes. "He would be so proud." They spent the evening preparing for tomorrow. Hope hung her latest painting, a commanding portrait of Harold that would grace the wing's entrance. Lisa organized the medical documentation that showed how Destiny's research had advanced stroke treatment protocols. "Remember his hands shaking?" Hope asked suddenly. "How he tried to hide it?" "If we'd known then what we know now." Destiny began. "Hey," Lisa touched her arm. "You've helped hundreds of patients since then. Your research has saved lives. That's what he would have wanted." Later that night, unable to sleep, Destiny walked the quiet house. In the study, once Harold's favorite room, his old chair still sat by the window. His books lined the shelves, medical texts now mixed with Hope's art books and Lisa's nursing manuals. On the desk sat a framed photo from Destiny's medical school graduation. Harold hadn't lived to see it, but they placed his picture prominently at the ceremony. In her graduation photos, she wore his caduceus necklace, the same one she would wear tomorrow. Her phone buzzed, a notification from the hospital. A new stroke patient admitted to the ER. Without hesitation, Destiny grabbed her coat. "Going in?" Lisa asked from the doorway, ever the light sleeper. "Someone needs help," Destiny said simply. Lisa smiled. "Just like Harold taught us." At the hospital, Destiny moved through the familiar corridors. The new wing would open tomorrow, but tonight she had a patient who needed her now. The patient was elderly, confused, scared, just like Harold had been. But this time, Destiny had knowledge he hadn't had, treatments that weren't available then. "I'm Dr. Carter," she told the frightened family. "And I promise you, we're going to help." Hours later, as she watched the patient stabilize, Destiny touched her necklace. "This one's for you, Grandpa," she whispered. Morning came, bringing with it the dedication ceremony. The hospital atrium filled with staff, officials, and family. Hope's portrait of Harold dominated the space, his kind eyes watching over everything. Lisa sat in the front row, flanked by her daughters. Hope, now a renowned artist whose work explored themes of family and connection. Destiny, the doctor who had turned personal loss into medical breakthrough. As Destiny took the podium to give her speech, she saw faces in the crowd, nurses who remembered Harold's last days, doctors who had supported her research, even Tom from the gas station, older now and somehow humbled. But mostly she saw her family, not bound by blood but by choice, by love. by the simple decision of one man to stop on a rainy night. 15 years ago, two scared girls stood in the rain at a gas station. Her voice carried clear and strong, telling their story. Of fear transformed into love, of prejudice overcome by compassion, of a family created not by birth but by choice. And somewhere, she knew, Harold was watching. Proud of his girls. All of them. That evening, they returned to Pete's gas station one last time. The old air pump still stood sentinel, witness to thousands of stories, but none quite like theirs. To Harold Thompson, destiny raised her coffee cup. Grandfather by choice, hero by action. To family, hope added. To love, Lisa finished. They stood together in the growing darkness, three women bound by the legacy of one man's choice. Above them, the gas station lights buzzed softly, casting halos in the night, just as they had 15 years ago when an old man chose to stop, when two girls found hope, when a family was born.